Our next value chain activity is obtain, build. Now, the purpose of the obtain, build value chain activity is to ensure that service components are available when and where they're needed, and they're going to meet the agreed upon specifications. Simply put, if I'm going to build a service, I need to build it to the design criteria that I was given from the design and transition activity. Now, there are a lot of different inputs and outputs when it comes to obtain, build. When we talk about inputs, we're going to get them from a variety of sources. First, let's think about architectures and policies. We've talked a lot about this, and this is something that comes from plans. Plans is going to output the architectures and policies, and lots of these different value chains are going to use those. Because if we know what the governance is and the architecture and the policies for our organization, that helps us design and transition a better service, or in this case, obtain and build it to those proper specifications. Next, we're going to look at contracts and agreements. As we get contracts and agreements with external and internal suppliers and partners, those are all going to come as an input from Engage into this obtain, build. Next, we're also going to look at goods and services. And these goods and services are going to be provided by these external and internal suppliers and partners. Again, once we contract for something, we then are going to get some kind of good or service for it. The information, the interaction, and the engagement all comes from the engage portion of that contract. But the actual physical delivery and receipt of the components, the goods, and the services, that occurs inside the obtain, build part of this activity. And that is going to bring us to our next thing, which is getting the requirements and specifications for what we want to obtain or build. Where do we get the requirements and specifications from? Well, that comes from design and transition. Somebody has designed this service, and they pass those designs to us here in the obtain, build, where we're actually going to install the software, purchase the servers, get it all connected and networked, and then transition it into the real live environment when it goes back into design and transition. Another input to the obtain and build activity is improvement initiatives and plans. And these are going to come from the improve activity, because the improve activity has been looking at how can we make things better. Once they figure out those processes and procedures of how we can improve things, they're going to pass that back to obtain, build so they can build those things. Another thing we're going to get from improve is our improvement status reports. Again, they're going to be looking at our processes, our procedures, the lessons learned from before, and help us improve the way we do business. Now, going back to our engage activity, we're going to get something from them as well. We're going to get changes and project initiation requests from Engage, because as a customer or a consumer or an end user, if I have a problem with a service, I might put in a change request. And if I put in that change request, it's coming in through Engage because it's an external communication. Once Engage gets that request, they're going to process it and then pass it over to us in obtain, build so that we can obtain or build the new service to meet that customer need. Other change requests may also be provided from deliver and support, because the people who are delivering and supporting things, maybe there was a switch that went down. Well, deliver and support can put a change request that says switch number 1 needs to be replaced. And then here in obtain, build, we would go get a new switch and replace switch number 1. Again, these processes are all very interrelated. And then we get down to our knowledge and information. Again, the same two we've been talking about a lot already. Knowledge and information about new or changed product and services is going to come from design and transition. We need to know what design and transition is going to do for some new service so that we can then build to that specification. And the other thing with knowledge and information is anything that comes from a third-party service component. That information is going to come from Engage as well, because Engage is going to push that out and get it from our third-party suppliers. Now that we know all of the inputs, let's talk about some of the outputs. One of the outputs is service components for delivery and support. As I go and I build a service, I'm going to build different components for it. I might build some software code or a particular server or a particular system. Once I do and it goes into live operation, it's no longer my problem as obtain, build. It now gets transitioned over to deliver and support, who's going to run it on a daily basis to give the end user what they need. This can include things like spare parts, consumables, new functionality, systems, and software. All of this stuff is stuff that we can go and give to deliver and support. Generally, when it's something big like a new system or new function, it's going to go from obtain, build back to transition, and from transition to deliver and support. But if it's something small like a spare part or a consumable, then it doesn't need to go to design and transition again, and instead it'll go straight to deliver and support. Let's say, for example, that I built a brand new web service and we want to get it out into the live environment. Well, we built it here in Obtain Build based on the designs that we got from Design and Transition. Now that we've built it though, we're going to turn that back over to Design and Transition so that they can transition that into the live environment. And from them, it's going to go back over into the delivery and support. You can see how all these processes and activities are going to tie together. Another output from this activity is knowledge and information about our new and changed service components to all of the other value chain activities. Anytime I built something new, I need to tell everybody about it so they know the functionality, the capabilities, how long that thing will last, when it needs to be replaced or repaired, and we can plan for it, we can design for it, we can support it. All of the other activities are going to rely on this knowledge and information, and that's why having a good knowledge management process is really important. Now, when we go back to contracts and agreements, we're going to send all that information and the requirements we have for those back to Engage, who's going to engage with those external stakeholders, those partners, and those suppliers. And finally, we're going to get all of the information about our own activity here inside of the Obtain and Build, and we're going to collect that performance information and improvement opportunities and pass that over to the Improve activity. That way they can consolidate that and look holistically across all of the activities and figure out how we can best improve ourselves. So when it comes down to it and we talk about the value chain activity of Obtain and Build, I want you to think about it pretty simply like this. Anytime we're going to buy something and install it, that's going to be part of this Obtain Build. If we're coding something and we're creating a new service, that's going to be inside Obtain Build. It's when the thing is actually being built and developed and coded based on the requirements you got from Design and Transition. Once it's ready, you're going to turn that back over either to Design and Transition to formally transition it to delivery and support, or in the case of something minor like a replacement switch or replacement hardware, that might go directly to deliver and support, which we're going to talk about next.